folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Gershon, and this week we are discussing big news in the world of the Scream franchise. As you all probably have heard by now, both Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega are not returning for Scream 7. So that's huge news alone. And then, of course, the reasons for them leaving the franchise is interesting as well. You know, Melissa Barrera was actually fired from the project due to her posts on Instagram regarding political issues involving the war between Israel and Palestine. And that is sad to see. I've never been one to discuss politics on my channel, and I'm not going to start now, other than to say that it's unfortunate. And I do feel bad for Melissa. Jenna Ortega, when it comes to her, it was said that it was scheduling conflicts because she's busy filming the Wednesday series, the season 2 of Wednesday. And when it comes to Jenna Ortega, she is kind of becoming a big star. You know, she's been on a roll lately. She's got a lot of big roles, you know. So she doesn't necessarily need Scream, per se. She's got a lot of other stuff going on. I mean, Wednesday was a huge success on Netflix. And, you know, she's got Beetlejuice 2 coming out soon. You know, she's got a big part of that. Yeah. So she doesn't technically need it, but, you know, a lot of people are speculating, was it really because of that, or was it because of what happened with Melissa Barrera? Is she, like, siding with her, and maybe that's why she left, you know? Who knows, because I had heard that she actually never was signed on to do it, so it could just be a simple matter of scheduling conflicts, but I don't know. People will read into that what you will, you know? But the bigger question is, where do we go from here with the Scream franchise? Because this is a huge dent in the armor, you know. They had just gotten back on track, I feel, with Scream 5 and 6, which I was hesitant at first because, you know, it's like, you don't have Wes Craven anymore, you know. He's really the creator of the Scream franchise. He didn't write the films, but he directed all of them up to Part 4. And, yeah, I am a big fan of the Scream franchise. And I feel like they set it up for the next generation of Scream, you know, pretty well with Scream 5 and 6. And Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, who will play the Carpenter sisters in Scream 5 and 6. Samantha, played by Melissa Barrera, and Tara, played by Jenna Ortega. And of course, Samantha's character is the daughter of Billy Loomis, the original killer from the first Scream film, played by Skeet Ulrich there. And I always thought that was kind of an interesting aspect to this new series. And it's something I've always found interesting, is the battle between good and evil in your own mind. And I like seeing that, you know. Skeet Ulrich's character, you know, talking to her in her head, you know, as kind of the dark side of her conscious, you know. Like, grab the knife, you know. I always thought that was interesting. Because that's something we can all relate to, because we all battle that inside our heads. We all have a dark side and a good side, and it's whether or not you rise above the dark side that counts, you know, and what makes you a good person. And I always find that interesting in film, and I thought they handled that pretty well. I thought that was interesting. So I wanted to see more of that, but fortunately that's not going to happen. So as moving forward for Scream 7, it's like, what are they going to do, you know? Are they going to completely squash the story they were going for with the last two films? Or do they take, you know, the remaining two of the core four, so to speak, and that is, you know, Randy's niece and nephew there, who somehow managed to survive both being stabbed brutally in the last film, like, multiple times, but somehow they survived. They're, like, indestructible. I don't know, you know, could you take those characters and carry a film, carry the Scream franchise forward with just those two? I don't know, you know. I don't know if I care about them enough to. I feel like the Carpenter sisters were really the focal point of the last two films. I don't know if I care enough about the other side characters to be able to carry a movie, but they could go that way, you know, they could make them a central focus, and then maybe if you brought Neve Campbell back and Courtney Cox back, you could have them on the, if you had them two on the poster with the twins there, maybe that could carry the film, you know, with the weight of the classic characters with them, perhaps, but I don't think it would be quite as successful, in my opinion, but, hey, why not? You could try it. So, should they do that, or should they do a complete reboot and just start the series from scratch? No Neve Campbell, no Courtney Cox, no Carpenter sisters, none of that story, and just start a whole new story. That's certainly something you could do, but I think something like that, they should wait a little while, because it's too soon, really, to do a complete reboot. I mean, it's still, 5 and 6 are still fresh on our minds, you know. So I think people are like, where the heck are the Carpenter sisters, you know, what's going on here? I think it would be too soon to do a complete reboot or remake or whatever they want to do. I think the best avenue to go would be, for me, to complete the story of Sidney Prescott and Gale Weathers, you know, kind of wrap up their storyline, because I believe Sidney Prescott moved to another area, so they could bring the film into that area, make her the big star, the focal point of this film, and this would be her last hurrah, you know, her and Gale Weathers together. And maybe you could throw in Kirby, since she returned in the last film, from Scream 4. I think you could still have her as part of the story as well. And that would be interesting. I'd be interested to see what they could do with that, how they could wrap that storyline up with Sidney Prescott. Because, like Halloween in a lot of ways, people always say that they want to move past the Laurie Strode character and the Laurie Strode storyline and just have Michael in a completely different setting without any ties to Laurie Strode or any of that. So the same could be said for Scream, you know. I've heard people say they want to move past Sidney Prescott, you know, and start a whole new era of Scream for a whole new generation. You know, they could have done that with the past couple films, you know. They could have moved on in, like, the next film with the Carpenter sisters. But I don't see how they're going to continue that story without them and make a whole lot of sense, or I don't know if it would be captivating enough. But I feel like the best avenue, the best route to go is to you know, wrap up the whole Sidney Prescott storyline. I think she deserves one last big hurrah and to be the star, the focal point, and wrap it all up, you know. And that doesn't necessarily mean by her getting killed off or anything, or even Gale Weathers being killed off. Maybe, maybe not, but I don't think it's necessary that you have to kill them both in order for the Scream franchise to move on, you know. But it's going to be interesting to see what they decide to do. Maybe they're not going to do anything. Maybe they're not, maybe that's it for Scream. Maybe it ends here. Maybe there won't be a Scream 7. Maybe there won't be a reboot or a remake. I'm sure they're going to revisit it somewhere down the line, you know, because cash talks, you know. Just like the Halloween series, it's going to keep going forever because money talks. It's a successful franchise, so they're going to keep that money train rolling no matter what. And I think that's the case for Scream. Scream is very successful, and it's made a lot of money. And every time a new one comes out, everybody comes out to see it, and it always does well. So I don't see it ending completely, you know. They might take a break for a few years and kind of go back to the drawing board and start fresh, which might be the best thing to do, you know. Take your time and come up with a really good story, a good script, and just start over again, you know, hit the reset button. I think that, to me, is probably the best idea, you know. Take that time, craft a really well-rounded story, yeah, and see what happens, you know. It is sad, it's unfortunate, because I enjoyed the past two films. To me, it was almost like a small victory just to be able to take over the franchise from Wes Craven and still maintain the solid film, you know. They were able to do that. I think they did very well. To me, it felt like the Scream franchise was in good hands. They're doing a great job with it. They're honoring what came before, but bringing something new to the table. Like the last film was set in New York City. I thought that was really cool, and I thought they handled that well. There was a lot of really cool scenes in New York City there on the subway. That's a great scene. Yeah. In that convenience store in New York, that was a great scene too. There was a lot of cool stuff. They probably could have did a little bit more with that New York setting, but still, I enjoyed what they used. Yeah, so they could have that be the next theme, you know, have it take place somewhere else in some other famous city somewhere, you know, have Scream in Las Vegas or something. That could be Scream in Australia or something. Scream in Italy. Why can't the Ghostface killer can strike anywhere? It doesn't have to be Woodsboro every time, you know. But that's what the last film showed, you know. You got a different setting, and that was cool, you know. I enjoyed that. That was something different for the franchise. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. What do you guys think? How can they move forward, or can they move forward with this franchise? Or is it dead? Lay it to rest. Set the tombstone. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared. Good evening, folks, and we got some brand new merchandise for you over at www.thehorrorcona.com, and that's CONA.com. Representing the Horror Corner. Great new design. We got the Morbid Hour live stream there, you got the Horror Hangout live stream there, and you got my nemesis, the Dark Fate. So grab your t-shirt over at www.thehorrorcona.com. And we also got this beautiful new mug. Look at that. Very, very cool. Thought that came out really nice. So grab your merchandise today over at www.thehorrorcona.com.